Trial Network. This is Brian Ross Investigates. Good evening, and thank you for joining us, and welcome to our viewers on Facebook Live. I'm Brian Ross, joined tonight, as always, by my colleague Rhonda Schwartz. And Rhonda, it's a new year, a year which could be a year of reckoning for yet another powerful man accused of abusing young women under his authority and control. He calls himself the Apostle. Nasser Joaquin Garcia leads the Light of the World Church, which claims to have 5 million members in the United States and in dozens of countries around the world. His trial in California could begin in the next few months, but tonight we're learning there may be more charges coming against him. Rhonda?
That's right, Brian. On top of the criminal charges he faces in California state court, Nassim Joaquin Garcia and his Light of the World Church are also under investigation by federal authorities in Mexico and the United States, the Law and Crime Network has learned, looking into additional allegations of human trafficking and accusations of improper use of church money related to the apostles' financial lifestyle.
And Rhonda, his trial in California will likely include the testimony against him by one of his former handmaidens, Alondra Ocampo. She has pleaded guilty to a number of charges in a plea deal. And now she wants the world to know, although she can't yet talk publicly, but what she knows about the apostle. We're joined now by Miss Ocampo's lawyer, Fred Figueroa. Mr. Figueroa, why did your client decide to plead guilty?
I think my client has actually always wanted to plead guilty, and she's always wanted to basically expose the church and the Garcias for their true intentions. But there have been certain obstacles that have prevented that from taking place up until very recently. So, she's being accused, or she was being accused of dozens of felony sex charges. And so one can't just say, I plead guilty to all of it. Some of the charges were true, some of the charges weren't true. So it took some time to sift through and negotiate what she could plead guilty to, what she couldn't plead guilty to. If she had just pled guilty to everything at the outset, she'd be facing over 60 years in state prison.
You say that she wants to expose the true intentions of the apostle. What were they?
Well, some people believe that this is a church, and maybe a small part of it is engaged in this sort of rampant sexual abuse and pedophilia. But there may be more sinister intentions here. I think that there's been generations of pedophilia that have existed within this church, from the founder all the way down to its current version of the apostle, Nassim Joaquin. And maybe, this is really a pedophilia ring that's been disguised as a church. Or maybe it's a church, but these successive generations of apostles have discovered that it's also, they can engage in their sort of deviant sexual behaviors within the guise of the church. But for whichever it is, it's quite clear that 3 generations of Garcias have been engaging in rampant sexual abuse and pedophilia, and lately child pornography. And yet they maintain this image of holiness and purity. So people are now starting to see them for what they are. And my client, Ms. Ocampo, wants to play a role in that. She wants to expose them. And actually, one of the reasons she's asked me to be her spokesperson is she wants to hopefully prevent these abuses from occurring to other women. It took her a long time to realize that what was being done to her was not holy, was not righteous, was not something mandated by God. And she's hoping that other women who are or were in the same situation she was in will see this, and hopefully will learn that this abuse isn't right.
How old was she when she was first abused?
She was 8 years old when she was first raped by Samuel, who is the current apostle's father, the former apostle.
8 years old.
Yes. It was in Guadalajara. It was during a time in which it was a religious ceremony of some kind where people from all over the world would come and gather at the church buildings and grounds in Guadalajara. There are secret tunnels and rooms that are underneath the church buildings. So there are tunnels that connect the buildings, and there are secret rooms that are connected to these tunnels. And she was taken to one of these rooms, and there she was met by Nason Samuel, who at the time was the apostle. And he told her that she had been selected to be his bride.
And did that abuse, the sexual abuse, continue on a regular basis then, from age 8 on?
Yes. It continued. It was continuous, and she's being told by the voice of God that this is what is happening is a holy thing, and that this is her way to heaven, and that she cannot tell anyone. And so by that time, she was so conditioned into just believing whatever it was that was told to her, and accepting that what was being done to her was a blessing. This was her belief for many years, that what had been done to her wasn't actually abuse. Her perception was this was a blessing bestowed upon her by the apostle.
So she went from being abused to being a recruiter, in a way, then, of other young girls.
Yes, and I think this is, certainly something that is not uncommon. We see it in other types of trafficking cases where, children or women, young women who've been groomed or trafficked, then later on become, assisters or aiders and abettors of the people who do the trafficking. But yes, she was abused all her life, and then later on she was coerced into grooming. And when Nason Joaquin asked her to assist him, part of the reason she obeyed him is because she has been conditioned her entire life into obeying the apostle, just like every member of this church and every member of her family.
She's not prepared to testify against the apostle in his criminal trial?
If she is subpoenaed as a witness, and I believe she will be, but if she is subpoenaed as a witness by the government, then yes, she is prepared to testify to the truth as to all the things that happened to her and all the things that she had been forced to do.
And what will she admit as to her own culpability, her own wrongdoing?
Well, she has pled guilty to 4 felony counts. I should let you know that the terms of the plea bargain are under seal. So there are some things that I cannot reveal to you by order of court. But she did plead guilty to 4 crimes. 3 of those crimes involve basically having contact with a minor in order to facilitate a sex crime.
What's her frame of mind? Is she remorseful? Is she relieved? What is she thinking now as she sits waiting a time when she'll make a plea of her guilt and perhaps testify against the apostle, the man who she was taught to believe blindly?
It's one of relief, certainly. And there's a mix of emotions here, but relief is certainly one of them. And there's definitely remorse. It's complicated even in the remorse, because she knows that she has done bad things. And part of it is it's what has been forced upon her. And part of it is what has been conditioned into her. But nevertheless, as a society, we still expect her to accept some responsibility for these things. And she herself is remorseful and sad that other women have gone through what she has gone through. And she wants to help.
All right, Fred Fiagaraja, the attorney for Orlando Ocampo, thank you so much for being here today with us and giving us this rare insight to what's happening inside that church and inside the life of the apostle. Thanks for being here tonight.